Hello, everybody. Carl here for The Right Words on Substack. All things serious and silly in voice, verse, essay, and conversation. Maybe you'll join me someday in a talk. Today, I want to talk very loosely about some of the things that have been taking place since the Felon regime took office in Washington. I've been holding back because I'm so fed up with it and quite busy with my own life that I really didn't want to have to put together all of the information that I think is necessary to do a comprehensive report. I look at journalists and I feel envy, but then they have a different career. So I'm going to speak extemporaneously for a few minutes about how horrible the Felon administration is in terms of a few of the things that they are trying to do. First and foremost, I want to make it clear to people that they have to keep in mind that what they are experiencing is not just the felon, not just Elon von Mudd, not just Marco Rubio or Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, or Scott Bessent, and the rest of them. It's the fact that they're doing the bidding of three different cohorts. So think of it as a Venn diagram. You have the Christian nationalists, okay? Fanatical, religious maniacs, prejudiced, okay? With some semblance of an idea that they think they're involved in virtue. But if you examine them, you realize they're religious maniacs. Another circle in the Venn diagram is the PayPal Mafia. This is the largely South African tech leadership that self-professed wants to turn over the democracy in favor of an oligarch ruled by tech, as they would say, geniuses, quote unquote. And then in the bottom circle of the Venn diagram, you have the MAGA cult. And they are an amalgam of perhaps some of the above, but I don't think many of them are well versed in tech, although some of them might be. These are basically people who are Americans who also, like the evangelicals, think that they are somehow involved in virtue and what is best for America, but they're largely, sadly, self-perpetuating ignorant people. Anti-vaxxers, left-behinders, just people who wanted to help Trump stay in office. And he's in that circle. He's a MAGA person who doesn't know much about the other two parts of the Venn diagram, but his main goal is to stay out of prison. And through the efforts of these groups, and then maybe you could superimpose on top of that the swing voters who thought that the price of eggs were going to be lowered and housing prices and car prices and so on. This cohort basically has enabled us now to be under the thumb of an authoritarian regime. If you listen to Stephen Levitsky 2 days ago on NPR, or if you're in Colorado, CPR, or wherever you get your NPR broadcasts at a local affiliate station, you know that the article that he had written with a partner, another academic, in Foreign Affairs, states basically that what the administration is doing with deportations without due process, with taxes that are really what tariffs are, affecting us, with the dismantling of all of the civil services that make our rights and sustainability in America possible, is a fascist takeover, and we don't really have a democracy now. And it's getting worse. I want to ask all of you to do your minimum diligence, as I do. I don't do a lot. I do things like this. And I call my local congressperson. I call my local senator. I sign petitions. Some of my friends go to protests. I don't do that. I don't want to have the carbon footprint of driving to Denver. I don't want to march anymore. I honor the people who do it, but there's an aspect of it that grew distasteful for me when I did it a lot during the 90s, protesting military aid to El Salvador, the war in Iraq, and so on. And that distasteful aspect is I feel like a subject, as we are now being reduced to with the reduction of our civil rights through what the government is doing to people without due process. dancing around like a jester in front of a king, and I won't do it. There are other ways to protest. You can knock on the door of your senator or congressperson. You can make a phone call to your ombudsperson in his or her office. You can spend time with them. I make several calls a week to these people. They probably know me by name now, and I know them. You can write letters. You can podcast. You can talk to your friends and gently try to change the minds of friends. But if you decide to march, that does make a good show of it on the news. I am proud of my fellow Americans who, like in the civil rights era, the women's rights era, the anti-Vietnam War era, the environmental era, are now flooding the streets in every city of the country, showing the felon regime that they do not represent us. I personally get upset inside when I hear the phrase, the United States today, and then add anything that we did that's deplorable, tariff-wise, treaty-wise, continuing to support the horrible genocide in Palestine, perpetrated by the IDF, by that fascist Netanyahu and Smotrich and Herzog and the rest in this Zionist government of displacement and basically trying to run the people out of their country, with Trump saying that he wants to make Gaza something like the Riviera. This is beyond disgusting. It's beyond unconscionable. It's beyond deplorable. And when I hear that the United States, when they use the phrase the United States instead of the felon regime, or giving it the honorific, the Trump administration, which it doesn't deserve because they acquired office by ill-gotten means. This man's a felon. This man is a traitor. This man instigated an insurrection against the United States government, the government which ensures your rights. And I'm offended when they say the United States, because I'm the United States, you're the United States. Our parents and we who have paid taxes to the government for the soft power that we've had in the world in helping other countries resurrect their economies and their governments after horrific wars, some of which we were a part of, which fights against diseases in the rest of the world, which provides for the veterans who have gone and fought for our freedoms or for the freedoms of others, in some cases fighting immoral wars, but they were doing their duty by following orders. And we can curtail those kinds of transgressions with good government, but this government is disemboweling itself, committing harakiri, right? But not with a samurai sword, with a butter knife, firing tens of thousands of Americans. People who, despite the conspiracy theories on the part of the ignorant and the podcast crowd, in many cases, was not engaging in fraud, waste, and abuse. And where it was an infinitesimally small amount. And what you do when you want to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse is you don't fire the secretaries of each government agency whose job was to ferret out fraud, waste, and abuse. And they were doing that. We've fired doctors and scientists who are keeping pandemics at bay, who do the medical research that fights cancer in children and adults. Any way you slice it, if you're an intelligent, honest person, and the key to being an honest person is routing out the lies in yourself so that you eventually don't lie to others. And that has to do with personal principles, religion, what you think is true. Any of the smart people know that what this government is doing is horrible, and it is destroying what the framers established and what we improved upon since the framers. And that's why Supreme Court and appellate court judges and lawyers around the country are fighting them. That's why lawyers in the Southern District of New York, who were once part of the Department of Justice, are quitting because of the corruption that the Trump administration is expecting from them. So I'm disgusted with it, and I do a little bit of a part about it. I post on Line Messenger and Line Voom, and I post on Blue Sky, and a little bit on my website, which I don't want to defile too much. And that's because that's a place where people may come to see my experience to hire me for jobs in Asia. And I send messages to my friends and to my representatives, and you should be doing that too. Your very freedoms depend on it. Every time this felon regime takes away freedoms, they're taken away from you as well. Because the deportations of people like Ozturk or what's his name? Camille Garcia, or Camille Abregas Garcia, who was legally in the United States as an asylum seeker and had been here many years and made his appointments on time to check in every year with the government, and who had raised a family, who was deported without due process. These are the steps that are leading to your rights being taken away. I envision a day when I'm in Japan and the administration sees that I've grown popular in criticizing them, and they decide to find a reason not to let me back into the United States. That was why they wanted to get rid of the 14th Amendment protection on birthright citizenship. They float these things with people that some might accept, foreign immigrants here illegally, legally, or for asylum. And when they succeed with that and they get rid of birthright citizenship, which they won't do, then they can come after you, who was born here as an American of parents who were American. Don't think that can't happen. What the Third Reich did in Germany in 1939 was they suspended civil rights. Don't think this felon in the White House wouldn't do that. So keep the faith in the Constitution, especially the better parts of it, and keep the faith in your being a citizen, and don't let them make you a subject, because they would do that. The Project 2025 people are part of all three of the domains of the Venn diagram I spoke about in the beginning. The evangelical Christians, or the Christian nationalists, the MAGA crowd, and the PayPal mafia. They all want to deconstruct this government. The Christians for some reasons, the Trump crowd, the MAGA crowd for other reasons, and the PayPal mafia for still other reasons, which are not hard to imagine. Thanks. Keep changing minds, beginning with your own.